Today is week 1, day 2. We're going to be talking about CSS positioning with Flexbox. Oops.
Do you have the recording on?
Yes.
Okay.
I do. Okay, so congratulations, you guys are still here. One person is definitely gone. Okay? I'm not being mean towards that person. They're just too busy or something. I don't know. I wish they were here, but then I accepted that they weren't here, and I just kept moving on with my life and our lives. That's how life is. Yesterday, we tried to scare you a bit. And for you guys, I'm pretty happy it didn't work. But we still got room for some of you guys to fail. Trust me, you guys can still fail in this class. I believe in you. You guys are capable of it if you really want to. Trust me. First, we're going to talk about yesterday's submissions from class. Does anyone want to volunteer to see their code demonstrated before the class? Anyone?
Yeah, more than happy.
Yours, Ed?
Yeah,
Okay, I wasn't expecting anyone to say yes there. Okay. Okay, hold on one second. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how I... Oops.
Ed, Steven, right?
Yes, Steven. Or is it Ed?
It's Edward Stevens. So that's why everyone always calls me Steven.
Okay.
It's not my name.
So we should call you Ed or Steven?
Ed is easy.
Okay, Ed. Ed it is. Okay, so this is how I would do this. I'm just going to open up my project, the one that I created yesterday. You guys can see my code editor here. Just so that you guys know, there's a hotkey that you guys should memorize for VS Code. You use Command or Control. If you do Command P or Control P, you guys can start issuing commands here. Additionally, you need to enter a caret right here. And this is where you just like type in commands. But specifically, I'm not actually going to enter a command. I'm just going to name a file that I want to have open, specifically index.html. Afterwards, we're going to jump over to, I'm going to copy and paste some code over. You send me on Discord? Just message me.
Friends. Oh, you're not friends with me.
Send an admin, send an admin. Which one of these? Which one of these?
What do we say now, admin?
Okay, so we have some code by Ed here. I'm just going to copy and paste everything inside index.html. And paste over everything we have here. I'm going to open up the side thing right here. And I'm going to continue copying and pasting our styles. Oops. So once again, I'm going to open up the live server. So I do Command P, the greater than sign, and then because I see that live server is a command I issue often, it's the first one that pops up. I can just hit enter now. Otherwise, I can just type in live server, and then VS Code will filter out all the commands that correspond to this. I hit enter, and you guys will see that it pops up immediately. It's okay. What's the problem right now, guys?
It's not style.
Why is it not style? What are some of the potential issues? Why might this be occurring?
CSS file is not connected.
Yes. The CSS file is not connected. That is the perfect solution or answer. Outstanding. So we're going to fix this. Okay? So we can see that inside of our link tag, we're looking for a file called style.css. If I look in the project directory, what do we have?
Styles.
So there's two different things. First off, we need to look in our folder called CSS. Afterwards, you'll see that our text editor actually suggests to us which files it is. See this little drop down right here? It's telling us what to expect. So we enter that. Oops, I made a mistake. Whatever. It already told us. Okay, so we're just going to rename it styles. We save and refresh. We can see that our styles are in fact applied. Okay. Ed, is this what you're expecting?
It's different to what I did yesterday. That's why I'm surprised by that.
I don't even see this navigation. So another command I want you guys to become familiar with is Command P, the less than sign, and then format. Format document. You see this thing that says format document? Get used to this command. It will save your life. You do it and your code will automatically be formatted. Sometimes this tool does not work perfectly, but it works pretty good most of the time, I would say.
The command
We see-
format.
Yeah, so Command P or Control P if you're on Windows, the arrow, and then format document.
You can also do Command Shift P to jump to the
Yeah.
Command Shift P.
or Control Shift whatever it is.
It depends on the hotkey.
Oh yeah, nice. So just like I said yesterday for the browser, Command Shift C is automatically focuses the the arrow, the cursor. Command Shift P automatically jumps to issuing a command instead of navigating through your file directory, Okay, so we have some issues here. I don't see the navigation bar, so I'm going to use Command Option I to open up the Chrome Developer Tools. Click over to Elements, and we can see that we do have a navigation right here that does have UL, but we do not see it. What's going on here?
Probably pushed it too far to the right.
Yeah.
Because we fixed it obviously on our screen with 950 pixels, and so we pushed it over to the right. It was
There you go.
So it's too far to the right.
Yeah. Zoom out.
You got 666 pixels wide.
Close inspector and zoom out. There you go.
Oh.
Oops. So I can tell you right now, we could debug this and get it working better, but that would take a lot of time. And I think the fundamental problem here is not that it didn't work on Ed's screen. The fundamental problem is that it worked on his screen, but it does not work on this one because the resolution and the width is different. That's why we did what we did yesterday. Because yes, on our own screen, we can all make it look perfect and amazing and beautiful. But as soon as you push it and someone else is looking at it on their screen and their screen is different, it looks like crap. There are so many different levels of challenges here, right? How much the user is zoomed in. For example, right now I'm at 100%. Some people can't see well, they zoom in more, right? They want their text to be bigger. Additionally, once again, I've talked about this before, we need to slide. The screen needs to be working on, tablets, web browsers, phones, in portrait, and landscape. I forgot to show you guys this tool yesterday, but once again, Command Option I, you guys can see the developer tools pop up. You can click this little icon right here that shows a tablet or toggles devices, right? So I can click it, and now it will show you what this looks like responsive. But I don't want to look at responsive right now. Let's look at what it looks like on an iPad. Still doesn't look that great. Ed, I'm sorry I'm giving you crap right now.
I don't mind that. That's why I thought I'd get this.
It's okay. iPhone X also looks like crap. This text is too small. If I was looking at this on my phone, I could not read this. I think my vision isn't bad. I've never had glasses, right? So anyway, what I'm trying to tell you is that layout and getting things to look right is a lot of work. But probably the most important thing, or the most difficult challenge, is to make it look make it look good on every single screen. I promise you, that's one of the hardest parts of this job. It seems simple. Stick it in the top right. Stick it in the top left. Make it stick on the bottom. Like this footer right here. Make it stick on the bottom. Yet, as soon as we change the screen, it does not stick to the bottom. So in a few moments, we're going to be looking at Flexbox, which will help us solve this problem. Okay, so let's look at one more. Thank you, Ed, for demonstrating. Hope you guys don't give him too much crap, okay? Yesterday, we were not doing it the way we should be doing this, okay? And we expected this to come up. So we're going to go back to our code editor. I'm going to look at one more example. We're going to look at this one right here, Nakasaki. Enquire, yeah. I'm gonna copy. I'm gonna paste this inside of our index.html. We're gonna jump back over to our gist. I'm gonna copy the rest of these over, the styles. We're just gonna paste over everything we did. Once again, we have the same problem. So this one's looking inside of a file called styles, but we want it to be inside of a folder called CSS. I want you guys to stick this in the folder, okay? I know that it's additional typing, but that's the convention. That's why I tried to show you guys yesterday that the folder, when you change it to certain names, it's gonna have special icons, right? If I create a folder here and I say hello world, there is no special icon. But if I do something called image, there is a special icon. Why? Because that is an expected folder name. That's it. This is an expected pattern that we're going to follow. Once again, there's a little bit of formatting that's a little messed up. Our indentation is a little off. Guys, try to write your code formatted correctly. You will get yelled at if you do not do this correctly. Not only is it difficult for you to understand, it's difficult for me to understand. And it's difficult for Qua to understand, and Charles, and Bitna. So I issued the format command, and it just kind of, it fixed the indentation. So that's easier to understand. I'm gonna do the same thing on the right. Okay, that looks good. And now we can see that this works, kinda. It's better, right? It's better. I also suggest you guys always have your zoom on 100. That's like the best compromise, right? Some people zoom in, some people zoom out. Just leave it on 100. Okay, so we got some decent work here. The things are kind of laid out where we want it to be. But it's not perfect. And I don't expect you guys to make it perfect because it's almost impossible to do it correctly without Flexbox. You're always going to have something like a little bit too far to the left, a little bit too far to the right. It's almost impossible. Charles?
Can you say something nice?
About this?
Yeah, the icon scale perfectly.
I was saying, yeah, I thought what I said was nice. It's like kind of laid out in the middle. Yeah.
The icon is scaled to the box perfectly.
Yes, and the icons look great compared to the input. Good job.
Those look good.
Yeah, it looks good. It looks good. Honestly, if you guys saw what I did yesterday, I couldn't get it centered perfectly. So when I said that, like it's pretty kind of where I wanted to be, I meant it. You know, that's kind of what I want.
The footer too, I think that makes some good work.
Yes, and the footer is at the bottom.
Stuck to the bottom of the page.
Stuck to the bottom of the page when we switched to iPhone 2. This is good. I promise you, this is good. Someone Googled like crazy yesterday. Who's Enqua? Okay, good job, man. Good job Googling. For real. Yeah.
One more.
Okay, let's look at one more before we move forward.
From team. Here you go. Well, can work together.
Good. You guys are working together. I like it. Oh, where'd he go? Oh, here we go. Whoa. Whoa. Did I do something wrong?
CSS.
Can you connect the
CSS.
CSS file?
Okay, let's see if this works. We're looking at styles. This needs to be CSS. Nice.
Oh, nice.
Oh, this one's sexy. All right, man, this one's good.
Yes.
So one of the things that sticks out to me is that they removed the highlighting. Whenever you go over to into an input, you know how sometimes it makes that blue outline? They removed that. Nice. That was just a quick Google search. Disable outline. Disable outline. Disable input outline. This looks almost exactly how I expected. Like they even gave the effect of the shadow. Notice how when you hover over it, there's a shadow. You see that? And that's exactly what Google does. Watch this. It's exactly the same, okay? Like I said yesterday, these are the touches that will make you look pro.
They're missing the footer.
Okay, you guys are missing the footer. It's okay. We don't conquer Rome in a day. It takes one step at a time, right? We also have a nice effect for the buttons. This is what I'm talking about. It's very difficult to make the effects like minimalistic, okay? Minimalistic. We want effects, but we do not want them to be loud and noisy. Okay, we want them to be just the right amount. Okay, I like this. Nice. They got this position 100% correct. Me like. Amazing. Okay, so guys, thank you for putting in your work yesterday. We know that the lab wasn't 100% on point, but you guys did a good job. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and move forward now with today's assignment, or the lecture. Okay, so today we're talking about CSS. CSS is crazy powerful. Here's a tool that you guys can use online. This will help you become more familiar. Like you guys read through this, it's a lot to read. But just know that there's a lot of stuff going on here, and you guys can check it out later, okay?
It's actually, so the site, it's a basic site, so open that. So this is a sample site, it's HTML, click on view all designs, and using the same HTML, these are all the same HTML with different CSS. So you can click on these different layouts, and it gives you an idea of like what is really possible CSS. This is the exact same HTML code as that previous site, but with just CSS, you're able to make it look like this. So this is a cool site to kind of show all that's possible CSS and how different it could be. So you look through a couple of these, it's all the same HTML. It's crazy.
This is all the same HTML structure.
Is that very first page that was super plain? Yeah. So CSS can do lots of things.
Whoa. This is amazing, guys. Someone is really good at their job.
Yeah. There are people who spend their whole careers doing CSS.
Is this one right here, Charles?
Yeah, this is the same HTML throughout all of them.
Wow. So you guys can click on this link right here. You guys can click view all designs, and you guys can see that with just touching CSS, how many different designs you can make. There are at least 11 pages. If each page has, 12 times 10, at least 120 designs. 132 designs right now, at least from what I've seen here, okay? So you guys can play around with this, and you guys will see that, there's a bunch of different, just CSS is crazy powerful. We're barely gonna touch over this in this class, okay? The expectation is that you guys practice throughout the course. Later on, as we move through more advanced concepts, you guys will still be using CSS. Okay, once again, like we just said, positioning is one of the most difficult things you guys can do. Obviously, with programming, there's a lot of difficult things. Okay, there's a lot of difficult things, and you guys are gonna hear me say this a lot. This is super important what I'm gonna talk to you about today. That's not gonna be the first time I say that. That being said, today, what I'm gonna talk about is super important, okay? So, like I said earlier, that when you start involving responsiveness to web design, you have to write twice as much. And if you do not use the correct design patterns, you will find yourself just in a nightmare of trying to get things. As soon as you fix one thing, you break something else. Okay, so in a second we're going to demonstrate this. This is hard to talk about conceptually. Demonstrations are the best way to show this. In CSS, there's this concept called display and position. It's exactly what it says right here. Display determines how the browser will calculate the position of the element on the page. Position is how we determine where to calculate from. Once again, this is going to be much easier shown. There's a bunch of different attributes that you guys will become more familiar with as the class moves on. Static, absolute, relative, fixed, sticky. Here we can see a diagram of the different ways that they move. Static means it just sits there, kinda. Relative is relative to where it would originally be. As you guys can see right here, the blue diagram, we're positioning it relative to where it's supposed to be. So it's like normally it would be right here in the top left. We move it down a bit and to the right a bit. Absolute is we're moving it relative to the parent container. So all these little boxes are inside this big container on the outside. When we position it absolutely, we're saying, hey, relative to my parent container, which is this box on the outside, that's how I want to move it. You want to say something, Charles?
Yeah, I would say just to add a few things. So static is the default one. So if you don't give a position, it's static. So everything you expect when you just do h1 or div, that's a static. Relative changes static just a little bit. And again, this is what we did with the icon yesterday when we moved the icon, the mic icon over left minus 15 pixels. Yeah. Absolute and fixed are a little bit special. They take the element out of the normal flow of the document, and so absolute will pin it to here. So if this is actually absolute, so this would be relative top 15, right 15, maybe. If you hit absolute 15, top 15, it ignores everything else on the page and just goes to like the container of the screen, basically.
So it's not necessarily the parent, it's actually the browser itself that always sticks to that.
Yes.
And with
You can change that a little bit.
absolute precision, you can basically move anywhere,
On the
move
page.
object anywhere on the browser.
Move absolute, yeah, absolute makes you move it anywhere on the page.
I think this is relative to the parent. No, am I wrong?
So it's relative to the nearest absolutely positioned element, I believe. That's right. So if you have an absolute inside an absolute, it's relative to that one.
Okay.
Okay.
And fixed means no matter what, this is the browser no matter what.
Always the
Yes,
browser.
it's always browser. We're gonna gloss over these though because we actually don't use this a lot. So today's emphasis is gonna be on Flexbox. The next slide will have. So let's skip the demo for now. So right now you saw what we did yesterday with the mic icon. There was a lot of guess and check. We're like, oh, top 7 pixels, 8 pixels, and we're playing with it in the Chrome inspector. There's a lot of guess and check with these pixel values. So some of those layouts you actually saw in CSS and Garden were probably just painstakingly tweaked with each pixel. But we won't do that a lot because if you go to the next slide, it actually gets to be kind of a drag. So the examples from how like the screen doesn't resize right, or people have different zoom values. We have iPhone X's. The hard coding of all these absolute relative pixel things gets tough. Mainly it's because each screen has a different width. So if you think about it, actually every screen has an unlimited amount of height, because you can always just scroll down. So if your layout is too tall, it's usually not a huge problem. Sometimes you want things to fit on a page for a phone, but for the most part you have as much space as you want in the Y direction. For the X direction, if it's too wide, it goes off the screen, you have to scroll sideways, or things break funny. So you don't ever want to hard code pixels for widths if you want to deal with responsive web design. And you also saw percentages a lot yesterday with what Loy did. So Loy is using percentages really well, but it sounds like it should work better than it does. But 20% of like a 400 pixel screen versus 20% of like a 1,000 pixel screen, it just doesn't look right. And you'll see like, I want padding right 20%, it looks okay, but then if you get to the either extremes, it starts to look weird. So we actually don't use percentages that often in production either, I would say. Very
So
rarely.
what are we going to use if we're not going to use pixels and percentage?
Yeah, so we won't use it for big, basically the question is you won't ever use pixels for big things. So like we kind of saw yesterday if you had like padding right like 400 pixels or height 300 pixels or padding right 400 pixels, those kinds of big numbers lead to problems because some screens are really small. So we're gonna use more fluid layouts in just a minute. But before I talk about that, as you're Googling, the earliest solution to this was something called float. So you might come across articles that are written 5 years ago telling you to use float left or float right. Maybe people who have a little bit of HTML experience have tried this. We will ignore that exists. So if you see that, ignore it because there's a better way than float. And so if you don't know what I'm talking about, great, you're where we want you to be. So the thing we will use is called Flexbox. I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, Flexbox is basically how we get elements to move around the screen based on how big the screen is, based on the width, on the height. It flexes with the user's screen. And we cannot predict how many different screens there are. I guarantee you there are at least 6,000 different phone screen sizes on in the world. How do I know this? Because one time I pushed through the Android Play Store, and then for some reason I broke something, and then Android said, hey, your app no longer supports 6,000 devices. Yeah, I was shocked how many different types of phones there are out there. So just know that Flexbox is useful for not only on the web, but on a mobile device. If you guys want to build mobile devices in the future, you need to understand what Flexbox does, okay? And we're gonna be doing that all today. That's the only thing that you need to focus on today.
Yeah, actually the origins of Flexbox actually comes from desktop UI programming. So the old, the Flexbox of how people lay out UIs on your Windows applications. This is what Flexbox is based off of.
It makes things a lot easier. When you guys use Flexbox, you won't need to be using percentages as much, pixels as much, view height as much, view width as much. Yes, you still will need to use them, but you will come to depend on them less.
Yes, but to answer Billy's question, you do still use pixels, but we'll still use like you have a margin of like 10 pixels here, 20 pixels here, that's fine. It usually won't break the layout, but you can't have big ones.
So it's more for the spacing.
Spacing, yeah, borders, like those things will still use pixel values for. Margin, like between elements. And there's one more complicated version of Flexbox too. So Flexbox is great. What Flexbox, you'll see in a second, it arranges things in either a row or a column. So it's one dimensional. There's something called CSS Grid, which handles both dimensions at once. You can also learn how to do this. The CSS and garden people, like if you're a CSS expert, you might use these layouts to do really complicated things. We won't need it for our course for the most part. But if you come across in Google, you could learn about CSS Grid as well. It's not that complicated. So for now, let's focus on Flexbox, because I think every layout that you do want to build, you can build with Flexbox.
The reason why we mention this in class is because we cannot predict what types of companies you guys work at. So you should be aware that these technologies exist.
And you'll Google and you'll find tutorials and you'll be like, why didn't they tell us about CSS Grid? And we're just like, we know about it. So I can run, I had this slide this morning, so I think that's why I jumped up here. So basically this is how Flexbox works. It controls 4 elements of your layout. And this is gonna sound very abstract. Maybe in about 30 minutes you'll have a better idea what I'm talking about. Because we have a fun game for you today. We have 2 games for you today. So one is how elements are aligned. So imagine we have a different layout. We have 3 items here. So think about the nav bar from Google. So the footer had things on the left, but the header had things on the right. How do we push things left or right? Some people I think use like padding left, 500 pixels, padding right, 500 pixels. Instead you can use alignment to either align things to the right, left. But you can also do things like space them evenly. Sorry, where's space? That's on the next slide. So you can space them out like this, actually too. So how they lay in that row, you can do the alignments. You can also flip it row or column, and you can also make them resize in different ways. So these are all like inputs to the Flexbox, and what you can see is on the next slide. You see it's this GIF. This is a normal display block. Display block is the default for divs. You may have seen that, but you can change to flex, and by default, flex will put things in a straight line, top aligned. But we can kind of tweak with this. If you go to the next one, this is probably the most useful thing we can do. So we can lay these things out and control how they space themselves. And these are all CSS properties. So once you define something as flex, you can define things like justify content, align items, align self. There's a lot of different options you can set. But it's really hard to like look at these and like try to memorize them. You really have to try them yourself and get internalized. So next slide is Loy is gonna walk through building this layout with Flexbox.
Boxes, yes.
So you might think that you could do this with like a padding. So hey, I'll just like make this, so you should make these boxes height 100, width 100, so we know how big boxes are. But how would we have a gap like this? If you imagine like a phone and what Loy will build recently, is you can kind of squish this and resize this window, and this white space should grow accordingly. And you can think about a layout that you might actually have. In a website, you might have like a little helper menu on the left, like the 3-line menu thing.
Hamburger menu.
And on the right, you have like the profile and Google stuff. So this is actually a very common layout in navigation bars. So can we
Live code it right now?
yeah.
Okay, let's do it. So I'm going to create a new directory called boxes.
Stay up here.
I'm going to change over to our boxes. Now I'm going to create some basic files. I'm going to open up my code editor. This is my tool. This is my knife. Oops, wrong button. I'm going to jump over to our index. We're going to do HTML5 and create the document. Additionally, we're going to do a link, CSS, to get this style.css. I personally want this inside the folder, so I'm going to go ahead and update the path right here. We create a new file called, or folder called CSS, and drag and drop our styles.css in here. I can see that I named my file differently than these guys, right? The default right here, this is called style. I called mine styles, so I'm just going to go with these guys. style.css. Okay, now I'm going to smoke test. I constantly want you guys to smoke test. I'm just gonna give us a background color of red, black, because I'm angry right now. Black, okay? I'm gonna save here, save here. Now we're gonna start our server. Okay, we're seeing that VS Code is telling us that, hey, port 5001 was taken. Let's run this on port 5002, or 5502. And do we see a black background, guys?
Yes.
Was that magic, guys?
No.
No, it wasn't. It came from line 2 in our style.css. Let's change it to red. Let's smoke test again. And we do, in fact, see that we have red right here. So I'm going to change it to black. Now I'm going to add a div. Okay? I'm going to give it a class name, a box. And I'm going to call this one red. So let's go ahead and add some styles. We're going to say box. Width is 100 pixels. Height is 100 pixels. And then we're going to say our red box is background color. What color should this be, guys? Red. That's a good idea. I like this. So we're going to save, and we see we do in fact have a red box. Okay? So for demonstration purposes, as we saw in that diagram again a second ago, we're going to change this. We're going to add a couple more boxes. We're going to say blue. We're going to say orange. So I'm just going to copy these styles over. I'm going to say blue. I'm going to say orange.
I don't think you did that. That's so cool.
So once again, guys, all you got to do is highlight whatever line that you want to copy.
Changing the post.
Oh. So if you guys see text, this is if you guys see text that's the same that you want to change, just highlight whatever text that you want to change, right? Do Command D, or however many times that you want to do it. And do you see the 3 cursors? We have 3 cursors now. Now we can change all 3 lines at once.
Or Control D in Windows.
Yes.
Super useful.
This is amazingly useful. I use this every single day when I go to work. Okay. Now I save, and we see that we have 3 boxes. What was the default layout of the that Charles talked about a moment ago? It's block, right? So display block, when it is display block, it always goes from top to bottom, okay? Let me go ahead and do this side by side so you guys get I'm not even gonna look at this anymore. Hold on. Okay, we're just gonna ignore the HTML for right now, okay? So you guys will notice that all these boxes are sitting inside of our body, right? Remember, our body is this black thing right here. So if we want it to move from left to right instead of from top to bottom, we can just do DF, and our VS Code will suggest this for us.
I think you should create a container.
All right. Okay, so my technical lead doesn't like what I'm doing, so I'm just gonna div.container.
Can you also show how you did?
Okay, guys, I have this plugin called Emmet.
Everyone has it.
Okay, everyone has Emmet, okay? When you guys want to define a new HTML element and also give it a class, all you have to do is type in the name of the element, and you'll see that Emmet is saying, hey, you can do more. Type in dot, and you can name whatever class that you want to apply to it. So I'm gonna do div.container, container. Now all I have to do is press tab, and it automatically does that. What I typically do is hold command and press right. Afterwards, command X. For those of you guys who are on Windows, every single time I say command, that means control for you, okay? I'm gonna stop saying control or command. Okay? I'm gonna scroll down where this box or where this container should be ending, paste, and then indent. I'm gonna format. I don't like this format. Whatever, we're just gonna go with it for right now. Okay, so now we have everything wrapped inside of our container. Remember, the default styling is that the browser automatically has display block, but we want to do something different. So we're going to say our container, instead of display block, we're going to do display flex. And you guys will observe that whenever we do this, that our boxes will not go from the top down, but from the left to the right. So I'm going to save, and we do see that behavior. Okay? Now it is unclear to me where the container is. That's the truth. I have no idea where the container is. So I'm going to do background color. gonna say aqua. Let's do aqua. Okay, so we can see that the container is taking up the entire width. And you notice how as I slide the screen that the boxes still stay where they are. But imagine that we wanted these boxes to be dynamic and to grow with the screen. What's something that grows with the screen oftentimes? Come on guys, someone help me out here.
Sorry, what was the question?
What is something that will grow with the screen? Navigation, 100% right. In a moment, we're going to be talking about, well, this one doesn't work well. Fuck. That isn't as responsive as I thought it would be.
So bad.
Try Spotify.
Yeah.
I think Spotify is a responsive, yeah.
This is even more complicated, actually. Don't worry about this, guys. Don't worry about switching the navigation to hamburger right now.
But it still stays on the edge of the screen.
Yeah, it stays to the right of the screen. Just notice that it stays to the right. Okay? That hamburger menu sticks to the right no matter how wide it is, okay? You guys see that? Okay, that being said, we're going to implement that behavior just right now, okay? So, where is it?
Can you jump into the slide and go to our original goal? Maybe let's try to build this.
Do you want to do this without Flexbox?
No, with Flexbox.
Okay.
This is the layout that we would like.
Okay. All right, so,
Also, I think, sorry, this is I like using borders here because the aqua looks like it might be a box. You can make the border aqua. Get rid of the aqua. And you can see that's a box.
so this is the container, right here. This is the container that holds it. So how can we get the blue and the orange box to the right?
Flex end.
Yes, that might work. So we'll do flex direction, is it? Display, justify content, flex end. So it moves everything to the end of it. But how can we get the red to the very beginning? So how can we get that to work on one of them? I think it's align self. This might work. Nope. Justify content. This does also not work. Normally, to be honest with you, I do this a lot differently. I'm not sure if I'm doing this wrong. I would have divided this up into 2 different divs, and then I've lined that in it. Do you want me to do that?
I think that's the only way to do it.
Okay. So this is what. Wait, am I looking at the wrong?
So you guys already know justify content, flex start, flex enter. There's actually a few other things we could try there. So maybe we can go back to the justify content and try what were the other options for justify content?
Between.
What? Justify.
And then here are all the options that you can set. So you can play with them and you should try to see what they all do. And try center.
All right, let's just do this. I'm gonna copy this, or not gonna copy. I'm gonna open up the thing on the bottom, and now we're just gonna mess around with it a little bit. So we're gonna see justify content first baseline does not work. This is not a valid style. VS Code gave us a wrong thing. Think about that. Do you see how this thing says a warning right here? Invalid property value, okay? So let's think about this. Justify content, and this is a suggestion right here. So I'm telling you your tools are not perfect. It's suggesting me something that does not work. I save it, jump back over here, refresh, it does not work. So don't trust your tools. Remember?
What is the baseline?
I've never even seen this one used in production, you know?
So that's
Yeah. The truth is like that's why what was myth number 4 yesterday, guys?
Baseline is if there are words in the container, then everything is going to be aligned by the words in it. Like, yeah, side by side.
So we're just gonna go ahead and try it right here, and then we're just gonna go up and down and just test. And it seems that we do not have all the necessary things that we need. Okay, none of these seem to be working correctly. right? It does move them around, but we want the blue and the orange to be together. Okay, guys? All right, so this is what we're gonna do now. Inside of our container, we're gonna introduce a new, two other divs. Actually, I did this wrong. Div dot left. Oops. Slowly. Okay, so we have a div. We call one of them left. Then we have another div. We call this one right. So the reason why this is messed up right now is why. Wait, hold on. Left. Display flex. I think this one's messed up. This block. Right now the container has display flex. I expect it to go left to right inside the container. Oh, the reason why is because the right is not display flex. So now we need to apply some styles to right. We're gonna say display flex right here.
So you saw before when you didn't do display flex.
Sorry. I keep getting the equator.
So you all tab way too fast. Okay. So before when we didn't have the display flex, you saw all three boxes one line. The same thing is actually happening to our right div. So we forgot to do display flex. So now if we do that, we'll see what?
We'll see that the orange box moves to the right of the blue box.
Right.
Save, and now it works. Okay, I'm gonna show you something else that we didn't show in our slides, okay? So we're gonna do dot left. I need to close this one. So there's another property called flex 1. So this is going to make these elements fight each other for position, okay? So we're gonna say flex 1 to both left and right. And what essentially that's going to do is say that both of them are going to add up the total of the numbers and then take their proportion. So save, and then you guys will see that basically these two, the left right here, it fights for 1 plus 1 is 2. What if you take 1 and divide it by 2, what do you have left over? How much? What percentage? 50%. Thus, left is 50%. So if we were to adjust this value right here, we would see that left would take 2/3. And then we see that behavior. So I know that may not seem clear right now, so I'm gonna give it a border color. 1 pixel solid orange. We're gonna say this one is 1 pixel solid teal. Oh man, there's a bunch of fighting now. It's kind of hard as hell. Shit. Okay, so you can see that the orange, fuck, you keep me on that, sorry. So right here, our left container, right here, it's taking up 2/3 because left and right are siblings of one another, right? They're siblings, so they have the same amount of power within their container, within their parent, right? So if we give them both flexes, and we say one has a larger number than the other, the mathematics will say, okay, well, since they're siblings, we'll just add up their flexes, and then whatever number that they have, we'll give them that proportion. So obviously, if we do both of them flex 2, then exactly, they'll just both take halfway once again. Obviously, if you take right and you do it 10, what's gonna happen? Yes. The right side of this div will take most of the space, and it'll take 10 out of 12. 10 out of 12%. Say again?
So you compress the screen, will they then move into a block display like a line?
What do you mean compress the screen right now?
So you
Make it
shrink it.
skinnier. Drag the window smaller. It's because we defined the width 300, so they can't ever get smaller than 100 of our boxes.
So this is just us messing around a little bit, guys.
I just want to see it, that's
Yeah.
fine.
I feel you.
That's what you should do. You should experiment. So this is the only way to learn this is to play with it.
Exactly. I 100% agree with Charles on this one, okay? We got to experiment, okay? We could tell you this. I could give you a test and make you write down all the correct answers next week. If you do not practice coding, you guys will not remember it. Okay, so right now we just leave it at flex one, because we want them to both take up half. Okay, so what did we experiment with just a second ago? How can we get things to move to the end? JC, justify content, and then it gives us some suggestions, and we say flex end. And now we can see that we got that layout basically. What's the layout that he said a second ago? Like a div on the left, yeah, with some space, and then a div on the right, right?
Div on the right have space too.
Oh, yeah, we could put a little margin in between those two elements.
Well, the thing is
and margin on the boxes.
okay, so you want some margin on the boxes? Okay, so we can say blues
On dot, yeah, or on the blue.
margin, right, 15 pixels, something like that. Do you have any questions so far, guys?
Can you try shrinking it and seeing how like it stays good? It's just like a navigation bar.
Okay, so this basically the main takeaway here, guys, is that you're never ever going to be drawing boxes on your screen. Well, what will you be drawing, guys?
CSS.
No, you're not going to be drawing CSS either. You're going to be writing CSS. Okay? But what will you be drawing on the screen? Text. Images. Logos. Links. Icons. Just a bunch of different things. And the important thing is we need to know how to put them on the screen where we want them.
Can you pull up the Spotify homepage? So this is almost the same thing. So we have, well, I mean, don't shrink it, but if you look at the Flexbox, we have a logo on the left, that's our div one. And we have more than two things here, but this is basically maybe one box, two boxes here, depending on how you look at it. So we use the boxes to replace, but we'll use text like Lloyd is saying, or images to replace those boxes.
Okay, so I'm gonna keep going with the lab now.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna keep going with the lab, guys. I'm getting antsy. It's time to do some magical stuff.
So actually the next step is just to do Flexbox Froggy.
Yeah? You don't want me to go ahead and do the live code? Okay. So guys, now we're going to do Flexbox Froggy, okay? If you guys go into your browsers and you type in Flexbox Froggy, you guys will come across this game at flexboxfroggy.com.
Of all the ways we've ever taught CSS, this is by far the most effective.
Yes, hands down, the best way to learn Flexbox right here. Okay?
We've tried a lot of things at Carter School. This is the thing that works best. Can you work through a couple of the first few levels?
So what? Oh my
Let's
bad.
start at level 1.
We're gonna go to Flexbox Froggy. Okay, so the container that we were just talking about, that our technical lead told us to make, right? It's this pawn right here. The pawn is the container. The frog is the element, and the pad is where we want to move it. Okay? Some dude, the super pro, maybe some girl, I don't know. Maybe some girl is really pro, and they built this for us to learn. Okay? We're gonna do all these exercises, and then when we're done, we're gonna do them again. Okay? So obviously you guys need to read these descriptions and think a bit, okay? And they're going to give you a description on how you solve these problems, and that's how we're going to do it. So every single one of them has set up with display flex. We're just going to apply some additional styling. So we're going to say justify content. I don't know if this is going to work, but we're about to find out. We're going to say flex end. And it does in fact work. I typed in justify content, flex end, and the frog moved to the end. Additionally, you guys can do align items. It won't work at all? Hold on, let me see something.
Just go down.
Yeah. And it will move across. There's this concept called the cross axis. Should I talk? Not talk? You want me to ignore this right now?
They'll do it. They'll do it in the next session. But sorry, yeah, you're right. You can talk about this.
Okay, let me say one additional thing, okay? Justify content and align items will not always move it the same direction. It depends on which way your primary axis is. Okay, it always depends on your primary axis. How do we change the primary axis, guys? We already did this. What was your answer? That's one way. Or just know that by default, it's always going to be column, right? The flex direction. Before we did this, flex direction was column right here, right? But as soon as we did display flex flex direction became row. That's kind of how you can think of it, right? And so know that whenever we do display flex right here, that the axis changes. And so what I'm trying to say is align items and justify content. The direction that this moves, the elements, depends on the primary and the cross axis. You guys can Google and find a bunch of diagrams for this, but ultimately at the end of the day, like Charles just said, you guys need to play around and start typing. Start typing and looking at the results of your code, and that's how you will learn this. Okay?
There's 24 levels, and if you can do all 24, you'll never have questions about Flexbox again.
Do all 24, and then when you're done, do them again. I'm not joking. This is how I learned Flexbox. I must have done this like 10 times. Okay? I would bet I've probably done this at least 10 times.
So we'll help you with these. We'll help you if you have questions with this now. In the afternoon, we'll do the Spotify lab.
Okay.
And we'll start with code, like a new live code in the afternoon.
Okay. All right, guys. So we've been talking about 51 minutes. Let's go ahead and start working. Obviously, we're here, okay?